Well, new bullying laws come into force on the 1st of January, and workplace relations lawyers believe the number of complaints in the first year may be double what's estimated. Well, let's find out a bit more about all of this with Joy Poor from People and Culture Strategies. Joy Poor, it's great to see you. Now, in terms of this, the laws come into effect on the 1st of January. What kind of, concern or interest are you hearing about this and how it may affect businesses?
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. This is going to be an unprecedented situation in Australia where for the first time employees will be able to go to the Fair Work Commission, make a complaint of bullying. Very strict obligation on the Fair Work Commission to do something about it within 14 days of that complaint being made. And what's really alarming, I think, for employers is the power that's being conferred on the Commission, that they can make whatever orders they see fit if they find that bullying has occurred. Now, that could look like individuals being ordered not to work together, someone who's found to be a bully being ordered to go through some kind of behaviour modification program. So what we're talking about is a potentially significant level of interference on an employer's organisation if it is found that bullying has occurred. And the definition of bullying is extremely broad. It talks about any act that's repeated that could create a risk to health and safety that's unreasonable. Now, a lot of subjectivity in that. And I think the reason that employers are so anxious about this is that at the coalface there are a lot of people at the moment who are claiming that they are bullied at work. Some of those legitimate. Many of those are situations where an employee just doesn't like what's happening to them because of what their managers are asking them to do, or some interpersonal conflict.
What's your estimate on the kinds of claims that could be seen in the first year of this?
Well, when the reforms were tabled, the Fair Work Commission, who are of course going to be inundated with this, themselves estimated 3,500 claims in the first 12 months. Now, it's always hard to tell what the real impact of something like this is going to be, but I think that number is extremely low. And the reality is that if it's going to be such a simple remedy with very little cost implications for an employee making such a complaint, I think the number could easily be double that, if not considerably more. And what will happen, as is bound to be the case, is that as word starts to get out that this is a very powerful tool and potentially a very disruptive tool within organisations, there are going to be people who feel like it's worth trying it on.
What then should organisations do? What can businesses do?
Yeah, I think it's important that organisations understand that the level of scrutiny around their compliance will be quite intense. So most organisations in Australia, certainly most large employers, will have policies dealing with workplace behaviour, and that'll cover discrimination, harassment and bullying. That's a starting point. It's an important starting point, but it's by no means the be-all and end-all. Until such time as there's an appropriate infrastructure within an organisation for the handling of these kinds of matters, what organisations are likely to find is that absent that infrastructure, employees say, well, there's no one I can talk to within the organisation, or even if there is, I don't really know enough about what that process looks like, I don't have the confidence in that particular process, I'm going to go externally. Now, they might choose to do that anyway, even with that infrastructure existing, but I think employers want to be able to say, if they're challenged on this, that we do have an infrastructure for handling these kinds of matters. We do have people who are trained in the handling of complaints, and they'll do so sensitively and quickly and all of those kinds of things. So that's very important. The other thing, I think, as this starts to set in throughout the course of 2014 is that leadership teams and the culture of an organisation is going to come under attack. And if you look at the high-profile cases over the last few years of sexual harassment, David Jones and other things, what you have found is that it's the culture of the organisation over and above isolated incidents or isolated behaviours from individuals that is what is most closely scrutinised. So is there a culture of bullying within an organisation is going to be one of the critical challenges.
All right. In terms of the coalition, I mean, the latest polls suggest obviously that they're going to be in power on Saturday night. What's their position on these bullying laws?
Their position was that they were supportive of there being legislation to deal with workplace bullying, so there was an acknowledgement by them that it needed to happen. The small point of difference was that the coalition are indicating that they will introduce an intermediary step between someone feeling bullied and going straight to the Commission. Now, whether that's going to have some impact if that goes through, possibly, but they're not talking about doing away with the provisions or the powers of the Fair Work Commission. So, message for employers, regardless of the outcome of Saturday, these laws are here to stay, and be ready for it, because there will be an avalanche of complaints in 2014.
Well, we've got you here 2 days out, of course, from the election. I just wanted to get some sort of final thoughts on you on the IR policies of the two major parties, and particularly what the coalition stance is, because, I mean, we haven't had a lot, have we, during the campaign?
No, we haven't, and I think in some business quarters there's been a level of disappointment and frustration that there hasn't been more coming from the coalition. Look, I think it's the natural fear that the coalition have that any noise around IR change will open up a criticism that WorkChoices is coming back, and they've been very keen to distance themselves from the WorkChoices legislation. Having said that, to the extent my views are relevant, I'd be saying that the system currently is not perfect. It needs reform. It's not working in a number of quarters, particularly the avenues of redress available for employees against employers has shifted the balance too much in employee favour. Industrial relations is reasonably under control in terms of level of strike activity and things like that, but the system is far from perfect, and I think whoever is the successful party on Saturday really needs to have a long, hard look at whether the system is working at present and be prepared to make the reforms that are necessary.
Talk too that the coalition, there'll be a productivity commission review post-election of workplace laws, and also talk about, perhaps limits on wage claims and bargaining. I mean, is that something that will go some way to helping that?
Oh, I think there are, in the business quarters or business community, that will be very well received. But I think there's a lot of areas of the current Act, and I take, for example, the avenue of redress that's available under the general protections claims, which was introduced by the Fair Work Act. Now, what we're seeing, particularly in states like New South Wales, is that senior executives, people earning millions of dollars in some instances, are bringing de facto unfair dismissal claims when their employment is terminated under the guise of a general protections claim. Now, that was never the intention. It's something that has gone out of control, and that's the kind of thing that I think needs to be looked at. Hopefully the Productivity Commission does look into those kinds of matters.
All right, it's going to be very interesting. Look forward to talking to you after the election too. Joy Deep Hoare from People and Culture Strategies. Thank you so much.